Part 5, when a woman stalks a man, legal system, mental illness, spirit children, and hoodoo. So, after 3 years of cyber stalking, after 3 years of me having to put out fires to make sure that people, people who are connected to me, people who don't know me and so forth, that don't know our organization, understand that we're not affiliated with this individual. Also, incidentally, just in case, to let law enforcement know we have nothing to do with this scam and this pseudo website, this nonsensical lawsuit asking for $687 billion and so forth. We have nothing to do with any of this. After putting out those fires for 3 years, she returns. So how did this take place? So I'm at home one evening, I'm getting ready to leave and go, do some business and so forth. And as I'm walking by through the hallway and so forth, I hear, a piece of paper slide through my door. Now, normally in this building, if somebody orders Chinese food from a certain restaurant, when the delivery person comes, they'll deliver the food, but they'll slide one of their menus through everybody's door on each floor. So when I hear the paper moving through, I'm like, oh, that's a menu. So I keep walking, I do what I'm doing, I'll get the menu later. But when I walk back past the door, I see that it's not a menu, it's an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. I'm like, okay, well that's sometimes the building, if they're having, an issue, say if they have to shut down the main water line for like an hour or so, they'll send out a notification, they'll slide it through everybody's door like a few days ahead of time. On this date, the water will be off from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. so we can make some repairs, just make sure you don't try to use the water at that time. So I'm assuming it's like that. But then another piece of paper slides through the door, and another piece of paper slides through, and another piece of paper slides through, and then all of a sudden there's a pile of 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper piling up on my floor. And then for some reason, some dollar bills are being shoved through the door as well. So when I see this, I'm like, okay, this is this individual. This is TL. She's on the other side of the door. She is back in DC from Kansas for the first time in 3 years, back at my home, stalking once again. So I walk over and pick up one of the pieces of paper. What did she say in a previous message? You need to read my book, go to my website, read my book, and learn the truth and humble yourself and all of this other nonsense. These are pages from her book. The fraudulent book that she's written telling her little fake story about, the Quindaro Township and some other things and other stuff that we're going to get into. So she's sitting on the other side of the door, and we'll show an image. I took a picture because I knew it was going to be important. I took a picture of these pages and the money, for some reason, sliding the money through. I don't know why she was trying to make it rain through the door. I don't know what was the purpose of the dollar bills, but the money, the pages of the book were part of, she's trying to force me to read that book once again. As she's mentioned in many emails that were deleted. So now she's sitting on the floor, leaning against the door, and now she's talking through the door. She's ranting, then she's talking softly, then she's crying, and then she's raising her voice, and then she rants some more, and then she's talking softly and talking about all these different things, and why are you making me sit out here? How long are you gonna make me sit out here? And you're supposed to be helping me, and a number of different nonsensical things. She's being, manifesting. She's manic and so forth. So now I make the decision. Once again, the first time she came, of course, I didn't open the door. Once again, if I was to open up the door and try to reason with this individual, not only is she imbalanced, but she's also calculating, also has a criminal mindset, also a narcissistic mindset. She would try to rush in and force her way in and fight her way in. And then there would be an altercation. And then hopefully she would try to blame that on me, and the police would come and, lock me up and take me away because of her. So Of course, I don't speak to her. I don't say anything. I simply call the police. The first time in my entire life that I called the police on somebody. So about 90 minutes later, police arrive. I'm at the top floor. It's only one stairwell going up. There's no stairwell going down. So since I'm at the top floor, if someone is coming upstairs, you have no way to get down unless you pass them. So I hear the police coming up and I hear them on the intercom and so forth. So once I hear them get upstairs and confront her, then I come out. And I have the pages of the book and I have her dollar bills and I give her her dollar bills and give her the pages of her book back. And they're asking what's going on. It's a male officer and a female officer. So I start explaining, this person showed up at my house. She's trespassing. We've never had any form of relationship whatsoever. I showed them the August 28th email when she talked about her divine compliment. I told them how she showed up at my home only 4 weeks after that email and so forth. All of that information. So then the female officer looks at her and says, okay, so what are you doing here? And she starts rambling. Well, he needs to help me with this case because he needs to help me file this case because he says he's about Black people and he needs to help Black people with this case because we have this land and all this other stuff. And the female officer is like, but that doesn't explain why are you here? He doesn't want you here. What are you doing at his home? Why are you here? And she keeps rambling on and on. And so eventually they force her to leave. And she's like, well, if he's saying that he doesn't want me here, then I'll just leave. That's okay. I'll just leave. As if she never heard that before in the past 3 years. So she leaves. The female officer says, listen, she's clearly mentally ill. What you need to do is file for an anti-stalking order. She gave me the information about how to do that and the links and so forth. The male officer, trying to be funny, is like, well, you know, it's a bad situation, but you got to admit, you must be doing something right if they're stalking you. You got to be doing something right. So, you know. So eventually they left. The next day I filed for an anti-stalking order, a temporary protection order and so forth. They give you an emergency hearing. A few days later, she was back at my house, inside my building. And once again, the only way you can get in the building is if you have the code, if you have a key, or if you're standing outside waiting for someone to leave the building or waiting for somebody to come in so they can be polite enough to open the door for you. So that means she's outside, stalking, kneeling around, waiting for somebody to come out this building so she can run up and grab the door and so forth. So she's back inside the building, banging on my door again. I simply say through the door, because the other day I did not speak to her at all. I just, spoke to the officers, totally dismissive of her. This time I said, get away from my door or I'm calling the police. And she knew I would, do that. I'm not going to go back and forth with her. I don't go back and forth with people in general, but definitely I'm not going to go back and forth with her. I just let her know, get away from the door or I'll be calling the police. She yelled some things through the door like, you need to help me, and talking about her son and all this other stuff. A few minutes later, she leaves the building. So eventually I have an emergency court appearance, and this starts the legal process. They give me a 14-day anti-stalking order. In 14 days, we have a court date. In the meantime, I am to serve her with a summons. So that means I have to either have a process server or have somebody else serve her with this summons to let her know a case has been filed against you and this is the court date. And once that process began, this is when her legal maneuvers and machinations and manipulations start.